So guys, what if Naruto was Phenex Family and Roygun as slave in High School Movie 1? The school is so great in fact that even if you don't go to Kuo College you would still be able to find a job that would pay you a high amount of money, but under all of that, this academy has a dark secret. It houses two of the most influential families in Devil's Society, the Gremory and the Seatree families. In fact, these two families were the ones responsible for founding Kuo Academy. In a Victorian-style decorated room, a red-haired devilish beauty sat at the president's desk in the club. The greenish-blue-eyed beauty seemed to be thinking deeply, judging by the worried frown set on her pinkish skin. She just got a recent call. To be exact, a call from her brother. Now, this occurrence is not that unique. In fact, her sis-con of a brother would call her every day twice, sometimes even thrice. No. What made this call unique is that her brother's tone was serious, something that is very unusual. During the call, she was informed that she needed to keep her evening free for an important meeting. Usually, that wouldn't be something to be concerned about much since he did visit her from time to time when he had free time from work. However, her brother's tone and the fact that the date for her marriage to the third Phenex son is fast approaching, it also doesn't help that she has been hearing rumors of the date being rescheduled to be even earlier gives her a cause for concern. A dark beauty stood near the red-haired with a worried look set on her face. She had a very voluptuous body with huge teats and purplish eyes that had deep anguish and hatred in them that is hidden by her usually sadistic and seductive personality, and that fact usually her eyes are almost closed. The dark-haired beauty seemed to be thinking about something that, judging by her expression, was very serious. "Will everything be fine, bucko?" questioned the dark-haired beauty, now seemingly unable to keep from voicing her thoughts. On the couch placed in front of the president's desk to its right sat a white-haired loli with a stoic look, a hint of worry in her eyes. Next to her sat a handsome blonde-haired boy who too had a look of worry on his face. On the couch parallel to the other sat an average-looking brown-haired boy with a clueless look on his face. Next to him sat an innocent-looking blonde-haired green-eyed girl with a similar clueless look on her face. They were listening to what the red-haired beauty and the dark-haired beauty were talking about. "I don't know, Akano. I am worried about the meeting with my brother. He seemed serious about something. It's out of character of him," the red-haired beauty replied with a worried expression to the now-named Akano. "What's going on, bucko? I am sure it isn't that bad, right?" the brown-haired boy asked with a clueless look. "I don't know, Issei. Buckus' brother is the current Lucifer of the underworld and one of the strongest devils in existence. He is the strongest out of the 4 Satans of the underworld. If he asked for a meeting, then it has to be quite serious," the blonde-haired boy answered to the now-named Issei. Issei gulped in fear. He didn't know that his king's older brother was actually the Lucifer. He was even more afraid since he has been perving on Rias since the day he met her, and he didn't want to know what the strongest devil would do to him if he found out about that. Asia, on the other hand, had a much more violent reaction. With her shrinking and trembling in fear, she was about to meet the strongest devil. The poor nun was afraid out of her mind. However, before anyone from Issei or Asia could ask more questions, a red light invaded the room, and a demonic cult-like circle with the Gremory symbol on it appeared on the floor, silencing everyone. After a couple of seconds, the red light finally died down and 2 figures were revealed. The first figure, and a tall man with long red hair and the same bluish-green eyes as Rias. He wore a simple black suit and brown dress shoes. The man looked uncannily similar to Rias to the point of looking like a gender-bent male version of her. The other shorter figure was a gray-haired, red-eyed woman wearing a French-maid outfit. Those two were Searsex Lucifer and Graphia Lucifuge, the Crimson Satan, and the strongest queen. Now usually Searsex would have probably said something cis-con-like and acted childishly. However, the Crimson Satan seemed uncharacteristically serious, his face set in stone. Seeing her older brother so silent, and his facial expression confused and frightened Rias, something was wrong, she knew it. Rias Searsex nodded, his eyes lighting up a little bit after seeing his little sister. There was silence in the room. No one knew what to say. Issei was too frightened to say anything. The mood in the room was too serious for him, not to mention the man in front of him frightened him beyond measure. Issei was frightened to the point of not even acknowledging Graphia other than a passing glance, his attention solely focused on the strongest devil. The less said about Asia the better. Not wanting to sit in uncomfortable silence any longer, Rias decided to ask her brother why he was here, and why the sudden meeting.
"You're early," Rias said. "What is so important that you would come here personally?" She, however, signaled Akano to go and stand beside Asia, so she can calm her down. Sighing, Searsex took a seat on one of the chairs facing Rias' desk, his queen standing behind him without a word. "To tell you the truth, I have no clue," Searsex stated calmly. "However, this meeting was requested by the Phenex family urgently. For some reason, they requested for the meeting to take place in Kuo instead of the underworld.
Pausing to see if Rias was following his words, Sirzex nodded, seeing that she was, before continuing. "We think it's about your engagement." Hearing this, Issei looked horrified and shocked. He didn't know that Rias was actually engaged. His world seemed to be crashing in on itself. Rias was engaged. To whom? Why? How? When? Rias, however, was emotionless. She hated Riser with all her being, honestly. She would rather die than marry someone like Riser. She, however, knew that stating that to her brother now wouldn't really help. She had already done before, multiple times in fact. Ever since finding out about her engagement to the third Phenex son, it wouldn't change anything. Gritting her teeth, Akano refrained from saying anything, her thoughts on the matter displayed on her face. Kiba and Kaneko only looked down to their feet, their thoughts unknown. Issei, however, finally decided to speak, momentarily forgetting who was in the room. Rias is engaged. To who? When did that happen? However, before he continued his rant, and before anyone could answer the pawn question, a golden light invaded the occult's research club room. A golden demonic circle appeared on the floor, with a golden phoenix taking flight in the middle. Phenex Rias whispered, her gaze laser focused on the demonic circle. Rias Peerage, except for Issei, who was sitting there still confused, and Asia, were on high alert. They expected to be greeted by Riser. After all, the only time they have ever seen this particular teleportation circle was when Riser used it.
So they were quite surprised when instead a man and a woman appeared. The man was around 6 feet in height. He looked to be in his late 20s to early 30s. He wore a black suit, with a red tie. He had the signature golden blonde hair that every Phenex had and blue eyes to match. His posture and aura indicated that he was someone of high status.
The woman, on the other hand, wore a black high-slit party dress, showing off her thighs. She had the same golden blonde hair as the man, though instead of letting it free, she placed it into a high ponytail. She had similar blue eyes, however, hers was much brighter than the man's. She was quite tall too, maybe around 5'11", discounting the heels that she wore. The devils, save for Issei and Asia, immediately recognized the devils as Lord and Lady Phenex. 2 ultimate-class devils and 2 of the most influential people in the underworld. Immediately the devils in the room, including the still confused Issei and Asia, stood up following what the others were doing. Sirzex took the initiative and greeted the 2 distinguished devils. "Lord and Lady Phenex, it's a pleasure to meet you both." Sirzex started smiling warmly, his hand out for a handshake. His earlier gloomy appearance was nowhere to be seen.
Lord Phenex smiled, his smile not reaching his eyes. Nevertheless, he took Lucifer's hand and shook it.
"It's a pleasure to meet you too, Lord Lucifer. I just wish it could have been under better circumstances." Lord Phenex stated, his comportment gloomy and defeated in appearance.
Sirzex ignored that for the time being before greeting Lady Phenex by kissing her hands and leading her and Lord Phenex to sit on 2 seats he conjured magically. The other devils in the room sat down, with Lady Phenex notably giving a nod towards Rias, which was returned albeit hesitantly. Both knew that Rias didn't necessarily like the Phenex family much, though both knew that appearances had to be kept. Once the 2 Phenexes sat down and pleasantries were exchanged, Sirzex finally decided to ask why this meeting was called in the first place. "Excuse my forwardness, Lord and Lady Phenex, but might I acquire the reason for this meeting? That too in Kuo of all places?" Sirzex asked the question on everyone's mind. Sighing simultaneously, the 2 Phenexes in the room showed a very melancholic expression, depression and sadness clear for all to see. Even Issei could see that both Phenexes were heartbroken and defeated. Seeing such expression on 2 of the most powerful and influential devils, Rias and the rest of her peerage were afraid. What could possibly make devils of their status so melancholic? Rias, with all her training to combat such situations, couldn't help but show nervousness, her calm exterior breaking. Sighing for one last time, Lady Phenex decided to finally speak. "I want to vow that everything I am about to reveal will stay here between us," Lady Phenex stated seriously, her expression frozen in ice. Eyebrows rising in surprise, Sirzex nodded his consent. "I assure not one word will escape this room," he said sincerely. The rest of the devils followed their leader and nodded with him. After seeing everyone agree, Lady Phenex nodded, took a deep breath, and proceeded to talk. "What we want you to know is that Riser is not our youngest son," Lady Phenex said, dropping the metaphorical bomb into the room. The room was shocked into silence. Everyone except for the still confused Issei and Asia were busy trying to reboot their brain, trying to understand what Lady Phenex just said. "I see," Sirzex stated calmly, though inside he was surprised beyond measure. How in the world did the Phenex family hide having a 4th son? Rias, however, unlike her older brother, was showing her complete shock clear as day.
Her face showed a flabbergasted expression, with a hint of hope in her eyes. She read the contract between her and Riser. She knew the exact terminology in that contract, and judging by where this is going and her brother's stubble glances, so did he. Taking another deep breath to prevent tears from slipping down her face, Lady Phenex continued. His name is Naruto. The day he was born his power was measured as a superclass devil, just like Lord Lucifer and Lord Beelzebub when they were conceived. Lady Phenex proceeded to drop another bomb, no, nuke, into the room. Another superclass devil was born in this day and age, not to mention that the devil is a part of the Phenex family, arguably the most influential pillar and most definitely the richest pillar in the underworld by multiple orders of magnitude. The supernatural world would be in an uproar if such news were revealed. The room was again plunged into silence. No one knew how to react to the revelation. Issei and Asia, the two newly reincarnated devils, were thoroughly confused since they didn't know the significance of what a super devil is, but judging by the rest of the room's reaction to that reveal, it must have been something important. Thus they stayed silent and decided to listen to the conversation going on in hopes of understanding just what in hell was going on. Rias and her peerage were also shocked, rightfully so. Of course, you don't get to hear about a super devil suddenly appearing, especially one that no one knew about, so casually. After all, the only 3 known super devils were born thousands of years ago. If Lady Phenex's words are truly, a new super devil was born less than 2 decades ago. Sirzex was much calmer, though that isn't to say he wasn't shocked. No, he was shocked beyond belief. It was just he was too busy thinking about the rest of the supernatural world's reaction if it was revealed that there was another super devil existing. Pandemonium would probably ensue, especially if the Great King faction, Zekrom Bael specifically, heard about this. Why were we just now informed about this? Especially since this would change the terms of the marriage contract between our two families. Sirzex calmly hid his true emotions behind a mask of calmness. On the inside, however, he was a little mad and flabbergasted.
Rias knew what he was talking about. She read and reread the contract multiple times after the engagement was revealed to her, trying to find a loophole or a way to break the engagement. However, unfortunately, she never did find a way. The contract was ironclad, with it specifically stating that she would be married to the youngest son of the Phenex household. Youngest son.
This changes everything, Rias thought. While yes, she was still getting married off to another Phenex, at least there's a chance that said Phenex would be different, or at least less of scum than Riser. For now, at least she would avoid voicing out her concerns and wait and see. Sighing for what felt like the millionth time, Lady Phenex decided to answer that.
No, it doesn't. Naruto is already engaged to another family. It was an old contract we had with one of the extra demon clans that was triggered due to Naruto's power. And when the contract between Riser and Rias was made, Riser at the time was the youngest son. Naruto wasn't born until Rias was born. A year later, in fact, Lady Phenex said, dashing all hope Rias had, making her deflate in her chair. Sirzex just looked at Rias in apology. We will come back to the specifics of the contract later. Why weren't we informed about another super devil being born? Sirzex asked again, acting in his Satan persona, and not as a member of the Grimoire family. That would come later. Lady Phenex nodded and started explaining. First, you need to understand that Naruto was not only a super devil,
but he was also frighteningly intelligent. He learned to walk when he was a couple of months old, learned to talk fluently with perfect syntax, and in complete sentences when he was 1, and he was able to read and write when he was 2. Once he had sufficient motor function, he learned things at a frankly ludicrous level, and his ability to control his magic was ridiculous. Lady Phenex showed a proud smile, her gaze unfocused as if she was reliving memories. She shook her head so she can refocus and continued. All these factors, and more, made our elders in the clan very protective of Naruto. They saw him as the future of the Phenex household. He was unable to go anywhere without at least 100 high-class devils shadowing him. The servants, and anyone he interacted with, had to be screened. At that, Lady Phenex cringed, her expression showing sorrow. It got to the point that any information related to Naruto was not allowed to go outside the clan in fear of the old Mao faction learning about him. Lady Phenex blew a stray hair out of her face. Could you imagine? Could you imagine if the old Mao faction knew about him? Could you imagine Rizavam Lucifer learning about him? Or hells, even Zekrom Bael and his band of old cougars? No, we couldn't let that happen. If us lying and telling you that Riser was our youngest son to protect Naruto risked our relationship with the Drimoris, then that was the correct option. Frankly speaking, Lady Phenex didn't much care about the contract between them and the Drimoris. Hell, the only reason that stupid contract was even made was because her husband decided that, hey, since me and my best friend both have children around the same age, why not create a marriage agreement and tie our families together?
It was also made before her favorite son was born. At the time she didn't really create a fuss about it, and when Naruto was born she was way too busy trying to hide the fact that he existed to care about the Grimoires and the contract. Now, however, things will change. Her son isn't gonna marry someone he doesn't agree with if she could help it. The contract might have been made before Naruto was born, but it specifically stated it was the youngest son who had to marry the Rias. Sure, Naruto might have not even existed before that, and sure he had another contract for his hand with another woman. However, the Grimoires could if they wanted to create a major fuss about it and have Naruto marry Rias because of technicalities. Her earlier explanation, while true about the contract not affecting Naruto, was true. However, when it comes to contracts between devils, the wording is important, and the Grimoires could easily argue that since Naruto is the actually youngest son, then the contract between Rias and Riser is null and void and instead affects Naruto. Right now, both parties are in a stalemate, and both Searsex and Lady Phenex knew that. That's why he said that they will talk about it later. Rias, while smart, was rather simple-minded sometimes, and didn't realize that yet.
Coming back to her explanation on why she didn't inform the Satans about her son, Searsex was not insulted by her words. He understood where the matriarch of the Phenex family was coming from, since Searsex would have done the same thing if his son or Rias were born as super devils. Family always comes first. Rias also understood where Lady Phenex was coming from. Damn everything if she can protect her family. Though she was kinda disappointed but odd at this Naruto character. He sounded like an anime main character, with ridiculous power and talent. The reason this meeting was requested by us is that 5 years ago when Naruto was 12 he disappeared suddenly. With only a letter being left informing us to not look for him. And that he is alright. He said that he left to train and complete his own peerage and that he would return someday. Here Lady Phenex stopped and laughed bitterly. That foolish boy really thought I would just take that lying down. We of course dispatched every single devil we had under command to search everywhere in the underworld, and on Earth, of course, and excuse my language, they didn't find shit. That boy was too powerful and too smart to be found by a bunch of ultimate and high-class devils. Still have no idea how he got his evil pieces, since he never went to see Lord Beelzebub. Lord Phenex muttered under his breath next to his wife. Surprised at this revelation, the devils didn't know what to say. Searsex and Graphia couldn't fathom what it must have felt like to suddenly have your son disappear on you like that, without knowing where and how he was doing. Rias and her peerage felt some pity for the Phenexes. It must have felt awful for your son to suddenly disappear. Sighing for the billionth time today, Lady Phenex ran a hand through her hair, undoing her ponytail before continuing. However, yesterday we received a letter from a reliable source of Naruto's current location, Lady Phenex revealed, surprising the others in the room. That's great news, Lady Phenex. But what does this have to do with us? Searsex said, feeling genuinely happy, wanting to meet this Naruto and confirm Lady Phenex's words. Lord Phenex finally decided to take it from here. While we would like more than anything to go there right now and get Naruto, I am afraid the location he is in right now is too hostile and dangerous for devils of our power to go there. Thus we would like for you, Lord Lucifer, or at least your queen, to go there and retrieve our son, Lord Phenex said, cutting to the chase. Nodding in understanding, Searsex asked, and where might this location be? And do you have a picture of Naruto we can see? Not saying a word, Lady Phenex reached out into space, her hand slipping into what looked like a small black portal, pulling out a picture frame. Inside the picture frame was a photograph of a boy around the age of 12 with golden blonde hair with 2 bangs on either side of his head, blue eyes that looked to plucked straight out of the sky, wearing black joggers, and an orange t-shirt, giving a peace sign towards the camera, a small smile on his face. The devils all had a single thought when they saw the photo. All of them thought that Naruto looked incredibly cute, though Issei looked depressed when he saw Naruto's picture, muttering something about handsome bastards. And where is he? Graphia finally spoke for the first time since coming here. Sighing again for the trillionth time, Lady Phenex said. Lady Phenex cringed before uttering her son's location. Vatican City. Damn, was the collective thought everybody had. In a hotel room with a simple queen-sized bed, lay 2 naked beings cuddled under the velvet covers. Both had golden blonde hair and symmetrical facial features, with high cheekbones and celestial-shaped noses, indicating that both come from a noble pedigree. The stench of and sweat filled the hotel room, and pieces of underwear, a black lace bra and matching panties, and orange-colored boxers, littered the floor. Golden jewelry and weird trigonal-looking knives also joined the pile on the floor, along with a slew of kunai, and weird ancient-looking scrolls. It would seem like the 2 occupants in the room threw everything they had on their person to have coitus. Suddenly a knock was heard in the hotel room, rousing both occupants from their slumber. Both occupants were light sleepers, the simplest of sounds capable of waking them up at a moment's notice. A side effect of being warriors, they always had to be ready for an attack. Although one of the occupants was more of a queen than a warrior, and what woke her up was not the knocking but the male occupant who she was being embraced by, cuddling in his neck in fact, with his arm acting as her pillow, dislodging from her grip in favor of answering the door. Tisk. Ignore that and come back to bed, Naruto, a regal arrogant voice called out, one eye open showing a crimson-red slitted eye, her tone conveying her annoyance. No can do, Gilgamesh, it's Merlin on the other side, Naruto replied, picking up his boxers and wearing them, absent-mindedly cleaning his body with a brief surge of his magic. He ran a hand through his blonde hair, styled in a similar style to his former father. Sometimes magic is much more convenient than chakra, though Naruto wouldn't trade it for the world. It was the only thing he still had from his old world, Kurama not being included. I don't get that woman's decisions sometimes. Why would she knock when she can just teleport into the room? She has seen us in worse positions, Gilgamesh stated, now wide awake. Naruto didn't comment on that. Merlin works in mysterious ways. She got up, kicking the covers away, showing her impressive tattooed cum-stained physique, her abused slit still dripping with Naruto's cum even after several hours, showing their impressive vitality. Gilgamesh didn't seem to mind the smell or being stained in his spunk. It was her king's and husband's cum anyway. What she minded, however, was the dried-up sweat on her body. I am going to shower. I would ask you to join me, but I know that today's the day you get that stupid sheath from those mongrels. Gilgamesh could have also easily cleaned herself using magic, but she preferred the finer things in life, and having a bubble bath is one of them. Naruto sighed and just went to open the door, nimbly avoiding stepping over Gilgamesh's jewelry. The last time he did, he had to her into a coma so she didn't get on his ass. All while being forced to wear gold chains and earrings, Gilgamesh had a fetish for gold, and having her man wear jewelry as he did things to her. Naruto didn't comment on the fact that what he wore that day would classify as weapons of mass destruction if he were to activate their inherent powers. Seriously, one of the chains alone would be able to seriously injure an ultimate class being easily, and the earrings let you have defenses equal to that of a newborn dragon. Naruto accepted the fact that his new life was just crazy, nothing he couldn't deal with, of course. Fighting his great-something grandmother, having his great-something grandfather give him half of his powers, later all of it, while also revealing that he was the incarnation of his youngest son, sufficiently dissuaded him from being surprised at anything. Becoming Hokage later on, and fighting literal aliens sealed the deal. His sudden reincarnation into a devil of all things didn't even make him raise an eyebrow once he was aware of where he was, and who he was reborn into. Naruto opened the door to the hotel room, letting a 5'4" white-haired woman in. The woman was wearing booty shorts and a white skin-tight tank top. Her nipples were on full display since she wasn't wearing a bra to hide them. The woman looked around the room, sniffed the room, then turned her now teary purple-eyed gaze to Naruto, pout fully displayed. Ah, you guys and didn't invite Lil Olmi. I thought you were busy scouting St. Peter's Basilica? Yeah, I was, but I could have rushed it if I knew you guys were having fun. Is this revenge for suddenly giving you a rim job while you were in Scathich? I told you I was sorry. No, I did say that I didn't mind it. What I minded was you trying to stick your finger up my butt. I am not into that. I won't do it again. Just don't deprive me of your dick. Naruto laughed and pulled the woman into his embrace, loving how her C-cup breasts felt against his torso. Seriously, Merlin, you're my woman. If you wanted you could have just axed anytime. Naruto kissed her baby's smooth neck, causing Merlin to release a lewd moan. Her neck was one of her androgynous zones, but now is not the time for that. How did your scouting mission go? Merlin pouted again, stole a kiss from Naruto, and still in his embrace proceeded to explain how her mission went. Well, for one, the church defenses are laughably easy to get through. The wards there are so easy to get through that honestly I think a high-class devil would easily get cut through the defenses like they were a hot knife cutting through butter. It would seem that the church bet their whole lot on the wards covering the entirety of the Vatican, and just did the bare minimum when it comes to the church itself. Merlin breathed in Naruto's scent and cuddled more into his embrace, absent-mindedly kissing along his neck. The guards there are at most high class in power, and the Pope is just a normal human with no combat prowess or magic to speak of. Vasco Strada, Ewald Cristaldi, Griselda Quarta, and Dulio Gesualdo are all out on missions or are stationed somewhere else. I'd wager we can easily disguise ourselves as normal tourists, and make our way to where the sheath is in less than 20 minutes. Merlin was now outright grinding her crotch on Naruto's boxers, causing his boxers to feel comfortably tight. Good. Are you absolutely sure though we can steal Avalon without setting off any alarms? I'd rather not get caught and in the process kick up another war. We might be powerful enough that nothing the church, heaven, or the fallen could throw us would hurt. But my parents and siblings are a different story. Naruto acts. His family was important to him. While he had family in his previous life with his wife and even had children, this time around he actually had living parents, and siblings both older and younger that he cared about immensely. Of course my love, I would never try to endanger my in-laws. The warding on Avalon is a shoddy job. I could easily break them without alerting the church or heaven for that matter, Merlin stated, getting off Naruto, and getting on her knees. Now, we have a couple of hours until we have to move out and I would like to please my husband like a good wife before embarking on our mission. She hooked two of her fingers inside Naruto's boxers, and proceed to pull the undergarment downwards, freeing the beast within, not minding the appendage slapping her face. Merlin breathed in Naruto's musk, moaning lewdly. She kissed and licked along his impressive 9-inch meat pole, bathing it with her spit, sniffing and moaning every time she ran her nose along his penis. Suddenly, she took a deep sniff and spat on his dick to lubricate it. Just relax and let your wife take care of you, my king. She absent-mindedly waved her hand and conjured a chair for Naruto to sit on, then proceed to take all 9 inches into her gullet in one go, showing that she had no gag reflex to speak of. Naruto's breath hitched, loving just how kinky Merlin was. Out of all his girls, she was probably the kinkiest, willing to do anything to please him. Gluck 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 gluck. An extremely lewd sound echoed around the room. Merlin's face was filled with saliva that escaped her mouth from her rapid movement, her massacre getting ruined and runny in the process. Some saliva even made its way to her neck, staining her tank top and making it transparent, revealing her breasts underneath, and her now hardened nipples. Naruto almost came from the lewd sight of his woman sucking his dick so enthusiastically and lewdly. Naruto had godlike stamina and extreme control of his body, but he never really exercised control when he was having or getting pleasured by his women. He tried, but all of his women were adamant that his pleasure was more important than theirs, and outright ordered him to come whenever he felt like it. It wasn't like he was human anyways. He could immediately go back to having if he wished. He had no refractory period like humans do, being a Phenex also added to that. However, he would like to feel his woman's mouth on his dick for a little longer before deciding to come. Unfrunal T. Merlin had other ideas. Gasped. Merlin took her mouth off his dick suddenly, not minding the strings of saliva still connecting her mouth and his dick. She didn't waste any time attacking his balls with her mouth, licking, sucking, and taking his balls in her mouth, bathing them in her spit like she did with his dick. She moaned at the smell of his balls, loving the musk. She didn't leave his dick unattended, of course, stroking him as she gave him a ball job. She continued bathing his balls in her saliva for 10 more minutes, never letting up for a second. Merlin, I am about to come, Naruto grunted, finally reaching his limit. Merlin immediately stopped her ministrations, and took his lengths into her gullet again, not wanting his cum anywhere but inside her stomach. She looked up at her lover, making eye contact. She made sure she locked gazes with him, pulled her now soaked with sweat and salvia tank top down, releasing her perky breasts from their confines, and proceeded to choke on his dick. Naruto came immediately and with prejudice, filling Merlin's throat with his spunk. After a minute of emptying his balls, Naruto took his dick out of Merlin's abused throat, cutting the strings of saliva that still connected them with his hand. That was amazing, my love, Naruto huffed, feeling that his soul was sucked out of him by a succubus. Which, to be fair, he wasn't wrong. Merlin opened her mouth and showed her cum-filled mouth to her king, then made a show of swallowing it. Naruto grunted, his dick hard again from the lewd sight of the greatest magic user to ever live swallowing his spunk. Anything for you, Naruto. Merlin went to take his dick back into her hands, planning to continue pleasing her lover, but Naruto stooped her by wearing his boxers again. I would like to continue, however, I think we should get Avalon first before Gil gets out of the shower. Naruto didn't add that if they started again, they wouldn't stop their activities until the next day, and that would be detrimental to their plans. Ah. Party pooper. Merlin got up from her kneeling position, fixed her top, wiped her mouth from some of the cum and salvia still left, and flared her magic to clean the mess on her clothes. Let me dress you, and get going. Merlin made her way to the closet attached to the room, where some of my clothes were hung. Naruto didn't try to dissuade her. He tried telling her once that he can dress himself just fine, but that didn't work. She said something along the lines of, as your wife I am accepted to serve my husband in all facets of life, dressing you is one of them. Merlin came back after 2 minutes. She had a white dress shirt, a black suit jacket, and slacks in one hand, a pair of socks and brown dress shoes in the other. Floating behind her were gold cufflinks and a dark orange tie. Hey, an orange tie, huh? You know me so well, honey. Merlin just kissed his cheek and proceeded to dress him, buttoning the dress shirt, and dragging her finger along his abs. He put the jacket on himself, earning a glare from Merlin, and in apology kissed her forehead. She blushed cutely and got on her knees again, helping him with his socks, then his dress pants, kissing his thighs in affection, and zipping his fly. She got up, tied his tie, took his hands in her own, kissing them, and placed the cufflinks in. She went to put his shoes on from him, but Naruto honestly felt embarrassed, so instead, he just used his magic and had them put on in seconds. That earned him another glare from Merlin, but a slap on her buttocks shut her up before she made her displeasure known. "Let's go." We dilly-dallied enough. Merlin just pouted and followed Naruto as he made his way outside. Naruto breaking into Vatican City usually for a devil is paramount to suicide. It's like walking into a police station wearing a C4 vest, carrying an RPG, while screaming loudly that you just ed someone. The screaming here would be the wards placed all over the city that are set to alert priests in heaven of a devil or fallen angel who is dumb enough to set foot on the sacred city. Those same wards were also placed on Jerusalem and Mecca. What's even worse was that if those wards were set off, you should expect an archangel to arrive to investigate. And trust me, no devil who isn't a Satan level wants to mess with an archangel. As for me, however, I had an advantage over most devils. I can mask my presence using senjutsu, and not this world's weak imitation of senjutsu, but actual senjutsu that literally and metaphorically makes you one with nature. This helped mask what would otherwise be a chaotic and dark devil's aura into one that is indistinguishable from nature's aura, or in other words, it made me invisible to anything or anyone that can sense magic, life force, etc., etc. Once someone got through the wards placed on the city, however, like what Merlin said, the wards placed on the actual church are laughably weak. "What are you thinking about, Naruto?" A Merlin asked from beside me. We were currently inside a blacked-out Rolls-Royce Cullinan making our way to St. Peter's Basilica, one of our servants in the driver's seat. My family has my simple response. Merlin didn't try asking more and just cuddle into my in silent support. She already knew everything and didn't need to ask any more questions to know what he is feeling. When I was first reincarnated into this new world, I was depressed for the first couple of years of my life. I had lost my family, my wife, my kids, hell, I lost my friends and brother in all of my blood. But my brand new family helped heal me from my scares, even when they didn't even know I was hurting. My mother, Reina, was the most affectionate and protective woman I have ever met in my life, never embarrassed or scared of saying I love you every day. That's not even mentioning her spoiling nature. She built me a castle that, if you compare to say Versailles Palace, would make the former royal residence look ordinary. She did that when I was only 7 years old. My father, Riker, even though he had a weird habit of talking in the third person when he was excited, was probably the most insane man I have ever had the pleasure of knowing. He always liked to boast about his wealth by buying things 10 times their prices, just so he can, as kids these days say, flex. He once bought a simple bookcase made out of gold and red diamonds for 2 billion alams, which is the equivalent of 4 billion pounds. However, he was also a lovable oaf, always playing with me when I was a toddler, even racing with me in those small toy electric cars, even though I knew it was uncomfortable for him to squeeze his 6-foot form into that small of a space. My older brothers, Ruvel, Rene, and Riser, were all that you would think an older sibling would be. Bullies, however, they were also protective of me and Ravel, and though rarely, they did show their affection to us. Rene is my favorite out of the three, mostly because we share a love of orange, ramen, and video games. That one is something I picked up during this life. Riser, unfortunately, picked up the habits of our father, just to a much worse degree, talking in third person in his default setting, not just when he's excited. My little sister, Ravel, the little brocon, always following me wherever I go, wanting to play with me or asking for head pats. Even with her tsundere nature, she always never shied away from saying that she loved me. For a love-starved former orphan like myself, my new family was perfect. They gave me something my former family could never have given me: parents and siblings. A blood family. That's why I had to go away. I needed to get stronger, strong enough that nothing would ever be able to threaten them. I could have gotten strong if I stayed, sure, but never as strong as I am now. But it hurt me severely. Sure, it was have been only 5 years since I left, and in the grand scheme of things that was nothing to a devil, especially a Phenex, since we are immortal, but I was human before I was a devil, and I still saw and experienced time as if I was human. Naruto, you did the right thing. Your power was going out of control. You needed to let loose before it consumed you. I might have done the right thing, Kurama, but I hurt a lot of people in the process. Kurama stayed silent at that. Other than the impressive magic reserves that I was born with, my Charka and Kurama also transferred with me. Unfortunately, they, instead of coming slowly over the years, decided to metaphorically ram into me with all the mass of a neutron star into me. It didn't help that my chakra was many times greater in quantity than my magic, nor the fact that it wasn't only my chakra, but Indra's and Ashura's also. Kurama's own monstrousness, almost never-ending amount of chakra, and my own ocean of magic reserves worsened the problem significantly. I literally had multiple different types of energies all in monstrously large quantities in a body of a child. If I didn't have the will, and the means to seal most of my chakra and magic at the time, I would have exploded from the sheer power contained within me, potentially destroying the entirety of the underworld, my parents and siblings included. The problem worsened to unimaginable levels once I learned that devils, especially pureblood devils, get stronger as they aged, without even training. That meant my magic and chakra were both getting stronger and stronger, which meant that eventually, my shoddy seals will break eventually. I had to leave the underworld. I had to go somewhere where I can train and slowly and surely strengthen my body to handle the power contained within it. Thankfully, with the help of shadow clones and the people I met along the way, I was able to get full control over my powers, and it only took me 5 years to do so. 5 years too long, Naruto. This is the last mission we have to do. Afterwards we are free to do as we please. The time to reunite with your family is near, Merlin whispered in my ear, uncharacteristically serious. I didn't say anything, just holding her closer to me. Sometimes I wonder if what I did was the best course of action. Maybe I could have just told my parents the truth of what was going on with me, and spared us the hurt and misery, but, if I had done that, I wouldn't have met Merlin, Gil, Scathach, or the countless other people that I now call family. Sometimes, what feels like the worst decision of your life, ends up being the best, Naruto. Maybe you're right, Kurama. I looked down at the beauty snuggled into me. Maybe you were right. There was silence throughout the room. No one really knew what to say to the revelation that a super devil, a Phenex at that, was inarguably the most important city outside of Mecca and Jerusalem to heaven. That was a disaster waiting to happen. Sirzex, however, managed to shake himself out of his thoughts, coughing into his hands to gather the room's gaze on him. I am afraid that neither my peerage nor I could go to the Vatican, Sirzex said, his tone conveying genuine sadness. Sirzex held out an arm to silence any protest from Lord and Lady Phenex. However, Graphia decided to speak for him before he could have. We cannot risk war with heaven. If Lord Lucifer were to go, or if I were to go to heaven, or at least the church could very well take that as a declaration of war, Graphia said, her tone ever stoic like always. She did, however, offer a nod of apology when the Phenexes slumped on their chairs. Suddenly Sirzex had a figurative light bulb flash on top of his head. Forgive me, Lady Phenex, but why couldn't you send your children, or at least Ruvel, to go and retrieve your son? Sirzex could of course guess the answer, however, he wanted to hear it from Lady Phenex himself. Lady Phenex raised an eyebrow but didn't comment about the frankly stupid question being asked. It would be suicide. The wards in the country are top-notch. It won't allow anyone not human to cross the boundary without altering an archangel, Lady Phenex sighed. Sirzex Med, before asking another question, your servants then? I am sure you have human servants, or how about the person who sent you the letter informing you of Naruto's whereabouts then? Can't you have them make contact with him? At this point, Rias, her peerage, and Lord Phenex were just spectators. Lord Phenex didn't mind, of course, between his wife and him, he was the dumber one, so he didn't mind Lady Phenex taking the lead. Rias was still reeling from the revelation that someone her age, nay, someone younger than her, by year he might be, he's still younger, was super devil, capable of standing on the same stage as her brother. Akano, Kaneko, and Kiba were similarly reeling from that bomb, however, not to the extent of Rias. Issei and Asia were just confused as hell. Neither of them were the smartest tool in the box, plus they were pretty new to the supernatural, or at least Asia didn't know a lot when it comes to the supernatural. Issei was just new. Well, for one, like the reason we gave you for not having Ruvel go. It would be suicide. They might be human, however. They stink of devil magic, and I somehow doubt that a measly human would be able to convince Naruto to come back to us. Lady Phenex sarcastically laughed, then continued, secondly. The person that supplied us with Naruto's location is pretty high up in the Vatican Church. He cannot be seen interacting with other people outside his post. That, and in the letter he sent, he told us that he felt Naruto's gaze on him. We don't know exactly why Naruto didn't do anything to him or why he didn't make contact. Knowing my son, however, I feel like he knows that he was sent by us, and so let him go. The beautiful blonde woman shook her head in exasperation. Interesting. How about this then? Do you know where Naruto is currently residing? Sirzex leaned further in his chair. The letter stated he is staying at a hotel by the name of Hotel San Ana Roma. Lady Phenex simply stated. Internally, however, she was wondering where this was going. I see, we can work with that. Do you have a pen and paper? Lady Phenex raised another eyebrow before conjuring a pen and paper using magic. She then handed them to him. She made sure to not look the Crimson Satan in the eyes, in fear of showing just how stupid she thinks he is. Of course, she knew this was all an act. Doesn't stop her from thinking he is adult though. Excellent. Sirzex exclaimed, his eyes twinkling. He then proceeded to place the paper on the desk in front of him and start writing. I have some spies in the Vatican, all of which are human. Right now I am writing a letter addressed to Naruto asking him to meet me in, 2 days from now. Yes, 2 days from now, he spoke as he continued writing, humming underneath his breath all the while. During his explanation, Lady Phenex had a knowing look, her face lit up in excitement. What difference will that make? I mean, if he really doesn't want to come back, he can just ignore the letters. We, the same as you, thought of sending him a letter using one of our human servants. However, what good are they going to do that we couldn't? Lord Phenex axed, speaking for the first time since his wife and the strongest Satan first started their discussion. The difference here would be that the letter isn't coming from his parents but from one of his leaders, plus, it's the safest option I could think of that would allow us to get in contact with Naruto without stepping on heaven's or the church's doors. I do not fancy us getting into another war so soon, Sirzex replied, not taking his gaze away from the contents of the letter he was writing. Lord Phenex had a similar visage to his wife after Sirzex's explanation. Sirzex wasn't the best at planning. That was Ajuka's forte, but he wasn't Satan tasked with domestic affairs for nothing. And he lived for centuries, he has more than enough experience. Which is why he didn't tell them the contents of the letter. Could there have been a better option than just sending a letter and hoping for the best? Maybe, but this is what Sirzex could think of at the moment, to both not risk war, and to please the Phenex family at the same time. It was, of course, left unsaid that if they do actually get into a war with heaven, the devil faction would have dominated that war. Sirzex just didn't want war, simple as that. Sirzex finished writing the letter, then had it sent via teleportation circle to one of his spies in the Vatican. Sirzex leaned back into his chair, and now we wait. Naruto, I was looking out the window, my gaze a bit unfocused as we made our way to the church. The road was a blur to my gaze even though I could easily perceive everything going in slow motion if I was so inclined. I was still thinking about my family and how our reunion will go. I idly imagined how my mother will probably ground me for life, slap me around a bit, then cling to me and having a small breakdown. My father would probably scold me. Riser wouldn't care save for giving me scathing comments. Ruvel would probably hug me and then ask about my journey. Renee would shout profanities at me for hours, then ask me to play Call of Duty with him, knowing that I hated the game with a burning passion. Ravel? She would cry, ask why I abandoned her, then follow me everywhere I go. I sighed, feeling my vision moisten. I missed them immensely. My previous jovial mood was gone, and it would seem that Merlin noticed my mood, judging by how she suddenly cast a silencing and invisibility spell on both of us. The driver didn't react, just continued driving. Talia has been with us for 4 years now, she knew our habits and thus wasn't really surprised. Merlin crawled into my lap and nuzzled into my neck. I could feel her hot breath on my neck as she nuzzled into me further. She took my right hand and put it inside her booty shorts, and under her panties to rest on her naked ass, then took my other hand and placed it underneath her tank top, on her naked belly. Hold me, she said, her voice muffled due to being nuzzled into my neck. Contrary to her words, I knew that she was the one holding me. She just wanted me to feel better, and to her skin-to-skin contact was one of the best options. Of course, I knew she wanted to take it even further while we still had the time. Merlin, out of all of my girls, was probably both the kinkiest and most feminine. She liked to be manhandled and doted on, more so than Gilgamesh, who was also very into being spoiled. Skathich was probably the only one that didn't ask for anything for me, though she expected for me to spoil her, she just didn't ask for it. Artoria. Man, that woman is probably the cutest thing on the planet. Even with her mature body, she somehow found a way to look and act like a kitten. If I used 21st century terminology, then Artoria would be the vanilla housewife, a gaudier through and through. Do you want to take me now, my lord husband? Merlin asked huskily, breathing heavily. I sighed. Yep, called it a problem. If you can even call it that. That my girls have is that they are very old-fashioned, which, to be fair to them, they are old, and so they viewed romance or relationships in general as the man being in charge, the one calling the shots, the one sitting in the dining room as they cooked, and the one that tells them what to do. And the one that can them whenever he wants to, without any complaints from them, also, the one they try to please whenever and wherever they can. To me, that was something I had to get used to. In Konoha, men's and women relationships were pretty equal. At least ones with shinobi being involved. Sure, the man might be more dominant in the relationship than the woman, but never to the extreme my girls seem to see relationships as. Hell, Minato, my father, 4th Hokage, and an SS-ranked ninja, was dominated by my mother in their relationship. Even Hinata, while being very submissive, had her moments where she just didn't want to cook, clean, or have. Merlin, Gilgamesh, Scathach, Hell, Arturia, all of them never ever complained or ever got tried for doing their, as they say, wifely duties. It was something that took me a long while to get used to, doubly so, because no matter how many times I try to help them clean or cook, they always refuse. Even Gilgamesh, a queen she may be, still referred to me, though, she was the only one that didn't clean or make food around the house. Arturia is banned from going anywhere near the kitchen. She might probably be the most powerful human to ever live, mostly because of her ridiculous sword. However, she can't cook to save her life. For someone who eats like they are the incarnation of Behemoth, she sure doesn't have any S when trying to make said food. I still can't get used to them dressing me, I sighed, groping Merlin's thick ass with my hand while brushing my finger along her asshole, scratching along her rim. Merlin moaned, moved her hips downwards, and sank my finger into her puckered asshole, moaning louder once my finger was inside her hot anal cavity. Oh yes, Merlin moaned like a common whore, moving her hips to herself on my finger. She placed her right hand inside my pants and stroked my now hard cock as she moved up and down on my finger inside her anus, idly lubricating it with a pulse of magic. Oh yes. My well-used asshole Naruto. Merlin groaned, moving both her hips and her hand on my cock faster. I am pleasing you, my love. Merlin husked out between moans. I didn't comment and just added another finger inside her asshole, making her shriek in pleasure. I grunted when she started kissing along my neck, living her salvia and hickeys all over my nape. Merlin was probably the worst of all my girls when it comes to being half succubus, and now also a devil didn't help either with her drive. Then again, Gilgamesh and Arturia were respectively both a god and dragon. Both races had insane drives, and the less said about the Scathach the better. That woman was pent up for millions of years inside the land of shadows. So maybe Merlin isn't the kinkiest after all, though. She was the type of girl to try any and all fetishes just for the sake of it. Suddenly, the familiar iPhone ringtone sounded in the car. I removed my hands off Merlin's now rock-hard nipples and took my phone out. Incoming call from Lion King waifu. The first pressed accept immediately. Oh yes baby. Merlin didn't heed or seem to care as she continued ing herself on my fingers, moaning loudly and uncaringly. Arturia. How is your vacation going? Hello Naruto, it's going pretty well. The weather is pretty nice here in Hawaii. The food here is enjoyable also, particularly the lomi salmon. I assume the woman moaning is Merlin? Oh yeah, baby. Keeping my asshole with your fingers. I am close. Yeah, thought so. IAMCUMMINNNNNG. How is Scathach? She is asleep currently. She almost ed someone today. Ho? That's unusual. Usually, she is very mellow. Yeah, some idiot pressed her berserk button. Huh. Someone insulted me. Yeah, some guy was hitting on her, and after she informed him of her status of being married to you, he said, and I quote, "Come on babe, what he doesn't know won't hurt him. Besides I bet my dick is bigger than his limp dick, come one. What happens in Hawaii stays in Hawaii." He said all that with an annoying cringe-inducing voice. I am guessing Scathach took exception to that. Oh most definitely, she slapped him hard enough that he had to be taken to the hospital. I think he has some brain damage. Sigh. Anyways, not that I mind the call, but what are you calling for, love? Just checking up on you. Our vacation is almost over and I missed your voice, missed you in general. I miss you too, Arturia. I just needed you out of the Vatican, in case they have a way to detect you. You never know if they have some holy meter or something. If they did, and you ever step foot on Vaction soil, that meter would probably explode from your sheer aura. You may be right, still, I do not like not being by your side. Hey, shin up. Today is the day. I'll come to see you right after getting Avalon back. Truly. Oh my. I am so enthused. This day is simply exceptional. From henceforth I shall start getting everything ready for your blithe arrival. Hey, you switched back to formal speech, Arturia. She does that when she is excited, happy, or angry. Right. How's Gilgamesh? Ah, she's embarrassed now. Gil is grumpy like always. Didn't want to come with us to the Vatican, mostly because she didn't want to disguise herself. Said something along the lines of hiding her majesty is a heinous crime, then proceeded to monologue about just how beautiful and powerful she is. Yeah, that sounds like her. Atroira chuckled before a sound of asterisk asterisk foo. Foo asterisk chimed in the background. Foo says hi. Hi, Foo. 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 I miss you too, Foo. Merlin is doing. I looked down at the panting, red, and sweaty face of Merlin, who was snuggled into my chest. Fine, she is just taking a breather right now. Foo? Yes. I didn't forget your snacks, Foo. Foo. Foo foo foo. Hey. Foo is running around in circles. Arturia chuckled before going silent. I heard a sigh from the other side of the phone. I really miss you, Naruto. Haven't been able to sleep peacefully for the past couple of days. Neither could Scathach. I can see her groaning and turning in bed right now. I sighed. There was a brief silence. All right, I replied, trying to infuse my voice with reassurance. I promise. Just one more day and I'll be there with both of you. I can't wait to see your smile again, Artuira, and to hold Scathach in my arms. There was a brief pause on the other end, filled with a mixture of longing and anticipation. I could almost picture Artuira's face, her eyes filled with longing and a hint of sadness. Just hang in there a little longer, I continued, my voice filled with determination. I am doing everything I can to wrap up my obligations here so that I can return to you both. We'll create more beautiful memories together, just like we always have. I know, Arturia replied softly, her voice filled with a mix of hope and longing. I believe in you, Naruto. You've always been our beacon of strength and love. Scathach and I will wait for you, counting down the moments until we can be together again. My heart swelled with warmth and affection. I couldn't help but smile, despite the distance that separated us. Thank you for your unwavering support, Arturia. It means the world to me. I promise the wait will be worth it. We'll create a future filled with happiness and love. As we exchanged those final words, a sense of determination and excitement washed over me. With renewed vigor, I focused on the tasks at hand, knowing that soon I would be reunited with my beloved Artuira and Scathach. The anticipation fueled my every step, driving me forward toward the day we would be together again. In the meantime, I took my fingers out of Merlin, now a gaping and swollen asshole. I idly noticed that my fingers were both wet from her squirting her pussy juice everywhere, and since she was straddling me, my pants and the car seat also got wet with her love juices, leaving the car, and me, sticky, smelling of vaginal discharge and sweat. As I went to dry my hands, Merlin took both of my fingers and shoved them inside her hot and wet mouth, sucking and tasting her asshole from my finger, moaning loudly at the taste. She should thank the ramen gods that I cleaned her asshole before plunging in. I placed my hands on her now soaking wet booty shorts and dried them using a brief surge of magic. I didn't dry her tank top, matted with her sweat, since I knew she was going to change into something more conservative once we made it to the church, plus Merlin liked being dirty, so might as well let her have her fun. I of course dried the car seat and my soaked with pussy juice pants immediately. I, unlike Merlin, didn't like feeling dirty. Merlin went to undo my belt and take my dick out. However, unfortunately for both of us, the car making a stop in front of the church blue-balled us. Ah, and I was going to have you me in the ass while you licked my armpit. Lick her armpit? Ah, I see. New kink, of course. Sigh. Merlin. Sometimes you scare me. I have no idea how Arturia dealt with her. Don't make that face, hubby. I saw it in a hentai. The guy enjoyed it. Everybody knows that hentai applies to the real world, so I am sure you will enjoy it too. I deadpanned. I'll take that as a yes. Maybe we can have Talia suck on your toes at the same time? I further deadpanned. No? No. Ah, Lord, save me from this devil. Speaking of the Lord, we made it to his house. We were still sitting in the car, mostly because Talia, our driver, was trying to find a parking spot, which is a hard task to find with the thousands of tourists making their way to see one of the holiest sites of Christianity. Merlin got off my lap, took her sweaty tank top off, and conjured up a t-shirt bra to wear, before cleaning her tank top from her sweat and putting it back on. I raised an eyebrow at her and she just looked back at me confused. What? I am not gonna give a free show to other people. It's about 101 Fahrenheit outside. I'll sweat, and if I don't wear a bra, my girls will be all out for everyone to see. Merlin tsked. She didn't like wearing bras, mostly because she didn't even need them. Her breasts were perky enough to not need any support. I didn't try and ask why she didn't just use magic to cool herself down. I already knew that Merlin liked to sweat. It's one of her 1001 fetishes. Seriously, that girl lives on, literally. In fact, if I wasn't literally immortal, I would have been sucked dry from her feeding on my life force. I sighed, blurring through hand seals and putting on a henge to hide my features, my unique solid henge in particular. I changed into a brown-haired, brown-eyed man with average features, and an average body, someone that can get lost in the crowd, someone that wouldn't get so much as a second glance, I also took off my suit jacket and tie, in favor of not standing out too much. Merlin did the same and shape shifted into an average-looking girl, with black hair and brown eyes. She also changed her scandalous booty shorts to simple black joggers. By the time both of us changed appearances, Talia had thankfully found a parking spot and parked. "We have arrived, sir, madam," Talia Everstoic said. Her caramel skin glinted from the sunlight breaking through clouds and into the car windshield. She put the car in park and turned to us, her black catsuit straining against her jiggling bust. "Do you need anything, my lord? I could get you coffee or something before you two and Lady Merlin have to go," she stated. Her tone was subservient and full of worship. "That's what being saved from a life full of misery does to you, huh? Poor girl. Taylor was someone I saved during my time in Egypt, but that's a story for another time." I looked at her bright adoring emerald eyes full of devotion and reverence and sighed. Before my time as Hokage, it was rare for me to ever have anyone look at me with any emotion even close to devotion. It was hard to even find someone even looking at me without them having hatred in their eyes. While defeating pain helped fix that, and the end of Fourth Great Ninja War further cemented the people's love in me, I never really get used to people actually feeling any positive emotion toward me. Even while I was Hokage, where I received gazes similar to Talia's own, I could never get used to it. Even in this life, it was weird. I took Merlin's hand in my own and wove my finger in her own, squeezing her hand with mine. Might be why I am so touched-starved, huh? I got over most of my childhood trauma, however. Some things just stay with you forever. "No thank you, Talia, I want this over with quickly," I chuckled once I noticed her deflating form. "You can go get us coffee while we are away, Talia. It should take us more than 10 minutes. Immediately the brunette beauty straightened up and nodded vigorously. "Right, sir. I'll be right here with your coffee before you come back." I smiled as I opened the car door. She was so easy to please. "Take care, Talia," I called out as Merlin and I made our way out of the car and into the sweltering heat of the sun. I, of course, didn't feel anything. Being a Phenex came with its perks. One such perk is total immunity to fire and by virtue heat. "It's really loud, huh?" And it was. Hundreds if not thousands of people were all making their way towards the gigantic church before us, the majority of them being tourists. "Yeah, it's pretty packed today. Yesterday wasn't as bad," Merlin said, her gaze wandering about. We were walking as we talked, dodging and waving through throngs of tourists. We went past an Egyptian obelisk in the center of the square, which attracted a hefty amount of people to it, all of them taking pictures. At this point, a question popped up in my head. "So, any idea where Avalon is located?" I asked Merlin, keeping my voice low so as to not attract attention. Not that anyone would understand the language we were talking in. After all, I was talking in the language of my old world, something I taught all my girls to use. Merlin chuckled, looking at me from the corner of her eyes. She was looking at S statue which was located in front of the basilica. "It's in a display case," she mirthfully said. "What? It's literally the first thing you see on your left." "No, that's not where my confusion stems from. They left one of the most powerful artifacts known to man in a display case for public view?" "Well, to be fair to them, they have no idea that the sheath is actually magical in nature or the fact that it's actually Avalon. They think it's something Charlemagne owned back during his reign." "But doesn't Avalon literally radiate magic?" "I mean, it should, and it does. The fairies, however, when making it, made sure that it doesn't leak any aura. It would be pretty stupid if an enemy of Arturia could sense Avalon inside her." Merlin chuckled. "It would be so easy for someone to just target Avalon instead of Arturia then, stopping her from healing." "Okay, that makes some kind of sense. I am still struggling to believe it though." I stayed silent for a couple of seconds, just trying to get over the fact that Avalon was just there, in a display case, in the middle of the biggest church in the world, where millions of people go past it every year, without even noticing it. Wow. Just, wow. Once I came through when we were in front of the entrance of the Ballistica, we had to stop walking as the entrance was packed with people going through, and since people can neither be patient nor orderly while going through a narrow entrance, instead deciding to squeeze themselves as tightly as possible to make it through the opening at the same time as others, which in the end, ended up creating lines of human traffic behind them. While we waited, occasionally taking a step or two as the people in front of us advanced forward, I used the hand that wasn't being held by Merlin and conjured a pair of dark sunglasses, conjuring it up in my pants pocket and acting like I was getting them out from there. I put them on and took another step when some space opened up for me to walk, absent-mindedly noticing that there were absolutely zero guards or security anywhere near us or in front of us. I could sense guards in the church, but none of them had any magic or even magical items on them. That's not even mentioning the fact that there were only about 20 guards inside. The church really is incompetent. They are pretty lax, I'll admit. Then again, nothing really of value is in here, so the church doesn't see the point of assigning anyone here that they may need elsewhere. We stopped talking for a minute or two once we made it through the entrance, mostly because we were making our way toward where Avalon was located while making sure we don't bump into anyone on our way there. There were just way too many people in the church today. It was hard to walk without bumping or stumbling into someone. We eventually made it to where Avalon was displayed. It wasn't really far from the entrance. All you had to do was take a left immediately once you made it past the front doors and walk towards the end of the hallway, and it was there, displayed behind a glass case, housed horizontally in a display stand with a small sliver plate underneath it embedded in gold with the words Holy Roman Emperor Charlemagne's sheath. Surprisingly, there weren't a lot of people standing in front of the display case. Just doing a quick head count, there were maybe 8 or so people gazing at the supposed sheath of a former Roman emperor. Wow, they really think this was Charlemagne's sword sheath? Well, for one, Joyo's does look similar in design to Excalibur. Merlin stopped and scratched the back of her head. Proto Excalibur, not the fake one I made and gave to the church back then. So, you think that the church confused the sheath with Joyous'? I mean, it would make sense. Both Joyous and true Excalibur share similarities in design. Yeah, most probably, no one except for the Pope, the Angles. Merlin thought for a moment before continuing. And maybe the top-ranked exorcist knows that the Excalibur pieces the church runs around with aren't made up from the broken pieces of the real one. While we were talking, Merlin and I were casting and weaving through spells that would make people leave our immediate vicinity, and by virtue of Avalon's display case. Merlin was also removing any and all wards placed on Avalon that would alert the church of its removal. While she was doing that, I brought up a fake replica of Avalon and held it in my hand under an invisibility spell, and away from the camera's point of view. Not that it would matter, because like most public places the cameras didn't work. By that point, Merlin was done removing the all wards. You can go ahead, Naruto, Merlin said from beside me, placing a notice me not ward discreetly on us. It was something she made when she first read Harry Potter. I made sure my glasses were placed firmly on my face and circulated some charca toward my eyes. If my glasses weren't as dark as they were, and if someone were to have been looking at me right at this moment, they would have seen through my glasses my eyes glowing red for an instant before glowing purple. Thankfully, neither of those hypothetical events are possible. I made sure my eyes were making contact with Avalon before exponentially circulating chakra toward my left eye. Iminatehikara instantly space-time laws broke, and the fake replica of Avalon in my hands was replaced by the real Avalon. During that literal instant, I used Iminatehikara again to replace the invisibility spell placed on the fake Avalon with the real one. Which effectively made it so I was holding Avalon inside the invisibility spell while the fake one was placed inside the display case which previously held the real Avalon. All of this happened in a literal instant, not even a yoctosecond had passed between the switch. Which meant that even if someone was gazing on Avalon during Iminatehikara being cast, they wouldn't notice a single thing. Merlin, once I gave her a nod to indicate that I now had Avalon, proceeded to cast the same wards that were previously placed on Avalon on the fake Avalon. It was really dumb of them to not link the ward matrix to ward stone to show that it had been tampered with, or at least a simple spell matrix to show when the spells had been cast. Merlin TSKED, if they had done that, they would have noticed that the spells I just cast were new, which would then inform them that someone had tapered with the previous ward matrix and just casted the same one to throw off suspicion. You can't accuse the church of ever being smart. Speaking of smart, why didn't you just place a henge or genjutsu on your eyes? I am an ardent follower of the rule of cool, Merlin. Merlin giggled. Let's go. Cool _420_orange_daddy_69 before Gilgamesh storms the basilica looking for us. Wait. Hold up a second, oi. How did you find out about that? Nah, not telling. Merlin tittered and walked away, heading towards the exit. By the ramen gods, I compel you to speak, woman. Your gods have no power against my mighty rod. Okay, first of all, it's not a rod, it's a staff, you degenerate. Second, how dare you? Third, there is no third. But you. Ho? Is that an offer I hear? I walked right into that one, I groaned. The drive back towards the hotel was mostly spent in silence. Merlin and I spent the time just sipping on our coffees that Tyla was able to procure for us, snuggling into each other. We didn't really have anything to talk about and just decided to spend our time in compassionate silence. Once we made it back to the hotel, the receptionist, the minute she saw us, made a beeline toward us. Sir, a letter arrived addressed to you. I looked at the crimson-colored letter and saw my name in neat cursive writing. To Mr. Naruto Phenex. Weird. Most people I know that would want to contact me had my phone number, never got a physical letter before. I opened the door, immediately getting exposed to Arctic temperatures by virtue of the AC being turned on max. Gilgamesh in all her glory was lying on the bed, wearing a risky transparent black nightgown, that literally left nothing for the imagination. I could easily see her nipples and pubic hair. Of course, she was also binged out in gold jewelry. That woman really knows how to seduce me. Merlin was already naked and making her way toward the bed. I got in and immediately got attacked, both women deciding that they wanted to snuggle. Well, Merlin wanted to snuggle. Gil was just resting on me, as she liked to call it. After all, it was beneath her to snuggle. I didn't pay much attention to them and just opened the letter in my hand. Dear Mr. Naruto Phenex, I hope this letter finds you well. I apologize for the unconventional method of communication, but given the circumstances, it seemed like the most appropriate means to reach out to you. I write to you today with a matter of great importance regarding the contract of marriage between Rias Gremory and Riser Phenex. It has come to my attention that a significant modification needs to be made to the terms of this contract, and your presence is crucial in discussing and finalizing these changes. I want to emphasize that if you do not arrive to discuss the proposed changes with me, the contract will automatically pass on to your sister, Ravel Phenex, and Milica's Gremory. This is due to the nature of the contract itself and the established hierarchy within the Gremory and Phenex families. While Ravel is certainly a capable individual, it is essential that we have your direct input and participation in this matter. Time is of the essence, and I urge you to prioritize this matter. I believe that through open dialogue and mutual understanding, we can reach a resolution that respects your autonomy while addressing the concerns surrounding the contract. Please inform me of your availability and preferred location for our meeting. I am willing to make the necessary arrangements to accommodate your needs. Your presence is invaluable in shaping the future of this contract, and I eagerly await your response. Thank you for your attention to this matter, Mr. Phenex. I sincerely hope that you will consider returning to us to engage in a meaningful discussion. See you soon. Sears X Lucifer. How dare this insect? Calm down, Kurama. He is bluffing. Yeah, he doesn't have the power to change contracts, are the participants of the contract, between pillar houses. Even if he does, he isn't a part of the Gremory clan anymore, so he has absolutely no say. He is probably threatening me in order to force me back to the underworld. I sighed. Kurama stayed silent. The old fox probably trying to calm down. He had a soft spot for Ravel. Couldn't they wait for one more day? To be fair, Naruto, they haven't heard anything about you for the past 5 years. They got desperate, yeah. But I let that guy that was following me go. He must have sent a letter to my parents by now informing them that I was alright. Thanks for watching.